We're picking up where we left off in our previous Sunday video, where we were kind of on the Kansas-Missouri state line and we were exploring from north to south. And the last town we were in was Yale, and there was a town kind of across the border from there in Missouri. We'll start there today. Stayed the night in Pittsburgh, Kansas, which is kind of the closest city in this area that has a hotel. So we won't be exploring like Pittsburgh or, any of the bigger cities, or, we kind of stay within that couple miles from east or west of the line and see if we can find some more historical places, maybe some ghost towns, probably a lot of railroad and mining history like in the first episode. That was a lot of fun. And we'll finish up towards the bottom of Kansas near Route 66. We start the day in Mindenmines, Missouri, and as you saw on the graphic, it went through some name changes. It was established in 1883 because of coal mining by Captain J.R. Tucker, and the community was just named Minden. And there was a Minden, Missouri spelled with an O-N at the end instead of an E-N, and the post office would get confused a little bit, so eventually they changed it to Mindenmines, 2 words, and then just combined it into 1 word in 1895. And that coal mining really helped the population, went all the way up to 924 in 1920. And as that deteriorated, so did the population and the town. And there are still some old buildings in the community, but there's also quite a few of abandonment around town, and definitely showing its age. It was a rainy day, obviously, or at least it had rain just before that, so made it look a little more dreary than it actually is, but good place to start the day. There's nothing left of Midway, but it was a mining town and once a major railway shipping point of coal. So it was a significant place right here, but there's nothing left but trees. But I did find a nice little railroad bridge nearby. Litchfield was another coal mining town that had at least 9 mines. And as you drive through, as you can see, there is nothing remaining. So I got my 2 gazetteers here, kind of trying to put them together. Starting in Mindenmines and went over to these 2 little dots, Midway and Litchfield. I'm not going to go over to Pittsburgh, but there's really nothing much on the Kansas side until I get to Opolis. And on the Missouri side, there's nothing either. So I guess we're just going to try to drive some back roads for several miles till we get down there, and then there's a couple dots. This is the middle of Opolis. Opolis is right on the state line, and on the eastern side of town is that state line road. So it's in Kansas, but you can see Missouri across the street. And because of that, it was named State Line originally in 1868. Had other names as well. It was Stevenstown. It was Steventown without the S, like the second S. It was Olopolis, and then shortened to just Opolis, which is a Greek word meaning city. It's not much of a city, but does have a lot of nice homes here. It's next to a pretty busy road, so easy access to get to the town. And yeah, just a nice, small, and quiet community to visit. As you can see, we are now on the railroad, and Asbury is located here on Highway 171. I've driven through this town many times, but have never stopped and always wondered about it. So it's kind of cool to stop and check it out. So that railroad was the reason why it got started, is the Kansas City, Pittsburgh, and Gulf Railroad. And the name Asbury likely originated from a local family of settlers. Population never got above 264, which is in 1930, and hasn't dropped off that much either, down to 193, but it's mostly been around 200 people. Waco, Missouri was named after Waco, Texas. And they have a old school here, built in 1934, as you can see. And I believe they turned that into a haunted house in October every year. So very cool. Must be a fun place to come and visit. But the town was situated on the Girard and Joplin branch of the Frisco Railroad, and it served as a shipping point for agricultural products and livestock. They incorporated the town in 1919, and in the 1920 census it had 368 people, but has really dropped off and gone down all the way to 72 today. In Waco, we got the haunted school over here and the church over here. I couldn't find much information about Lawton, but there were people going to church here on Sunday morning, so that was good to see. A lot of abandoned houses around the area, not too many people living here. The only thing I did find was that in 1910 the population was 30 and that it had a couple of general stores. And there are a couple of older buildings in the community, and I think that might be an old jail. There used to be a town here called Badger. They had about 50 people. Didn't have a post office. They would get their mail from Smithfield, Missouri, which we'll see here shortly. But this was a station on the St. Louis and San Francisco Railroad back in the day. Interesting little history here in Belleville. There's also called Zinkite or Zinc Site, a former mining town that began in the early 1880s, and it was called Belleville after a mining superintendent, and then they changed it when they opened a post office, and it was named after the local ore. It grew to over 1,000 people and thrived for about 20 years before declining in the early 1900s. There's a church here, a couple abandoned houses, but then there's also a lot of nice houses, and it's still a little community. I couldn't find much historical information about the community of Klondike. You can see there's a lot of nice houses here, so maybe it's a fairly new community, but Klondike's probably in reference to a mining history of some sort in this area. As you drive through the community, though, you see some damage to the church right there, and I found out that exactly 1 week prior to me filming this, on April 22nd, there was an EF1 tornado that came through Klondike. And obviously you can see the damage to a lot of the trees. I read that there were some houses and other buildings that were damaged in the tornado. Hopefully everyone made it out okay, and Klondike is on the road to recovery. I mentioned Smithfield when I was talking about Badger, Kansas, how the mail would come from Smithfield over to Badger, and this is Smithfield. We're basically in the outskirts of Joplin, so a lot of these communities have these nicer and more modern places. It's because probably people live here and then just commute on into Joplin. We're in Bell Center, and it's getting pretty busy. We're not too far from Joplin, so we're kind of at an intersection of a couple different roads. And the only thing I really found old is that. Everything else around here is pretty new. There's some businesses, and like I said, a lot of traffic. And we're definitely rolling into a more populated area here, Central City, just outside of Joplin. And right in front of us, that crossing road, that is Route 66. But there is some history here in Central City, and right there up on the hill, they tell it. And it's great because there's not much online to find, but they talk about how in 1880, the first school was built in this area. Mining came about in the 1890s, and the community grew to about 1,000 people by 1900. There was a railroad stop about a mile south of here named Jackson Station. There's a picture of a school that was built in the 1920s. But they declined after the 19-teens, and then the church was built, and basically that's what the community is around here. There's a cemetery I found on that map on that display, and it's pretty empty and overgrown, but cool little piece of history that probably the people of Joplin living just a mile or two away aren't too aware of. We're right above Galena, looking over towards Empire City, and this is a really interesting place to end our trip. It was founded in 1877, there just north of Galena, on land purchased by the West Joplin Lead and Zinc Company. It was established as a mining and company town, quickly rivaled Galena in population and commerce, reaching 3,000 residents in its first year. Rapid growth brought saloons, gambling halls, and chaotic streets. Then they had tensions with Galena. It escalated when Empire City attempted to block movement between the towns by constructing a stockade. Galena citizens tore down the wall in August of 1877, leading to ongoing feuds. Despite the violence, Empire City continued to build. Over time, Galena gained dominance due to richer ore deposits. Empire City's population declined by the 1880s as mining slowed. The towns eventually ended their rivalry through court action and cooperation. Empire City was annexed into Galena in 1910, and its post office closed permanently in 1913. Still, remnants of the old town. The cemetery over here is quite large. Pretty fascinating history, how they even built a stockade to try to keep people from going between the two towns. We're finishing up the day here in Galena on Route 66. It was really interesting learning about Empire City. I've done several videos about Route 66 and Kansas Route 66, and Galena's been in, like probably 3 of them. And I'd always seen Empire City on the map, but I didn't realize it was like it still was a community. And very interesting history. It could have been that could have been the town in this area, but Galena won out. And so very interesting. And so I stopped here in Galena. This is where I'm parked, right here next to the cars on Route 66, a very famous stop where they had the inspiration for Tow Mater in the Cars movie. And it was open today, and they were serving food. Unfortunately, wasn't time for me to eat, but I did get a postcard and got a sticker. So I donated to the local economy a little bit there. That was a fun trip. So ending, part 2 here, because we're basically at the
corner of Kansas. It goes a little bit farther. There's Baxter Springs down there. We've already, like, on Route 66, we've done all these towns before, so I thought this was a good place to finish with Empire City. Really interesting learning the history of these towns. Route 66 gets attention, and so towns along that have some history told, and some of the ones we went to today, never heard of, obviously never been there before, so it's cool to learn about those towns and used to be towns and, you know, ghost towns and all that stuff. Really had a fun time. Hope you did too, and I'll see you next time down a back road.
Thanks for making it all the way to the end of that video. And now that you're here, let me tell you a little bit about some of the extras that we have on the channel. One of the things you can do is you can become a member. There's 3 levels. There's the supporter level, there's the producer level, and the executive producer level. And all 3 levels have different perks, and as you are more supportive financially, there's more perks. We have extra videos every week and a lot of fun stuff going on in the member section. If you haven't done so, make sure you check out travelwithawiseguy.com. We've got lots of extra stuff on there, and one of the things is merchandise. You can get you Travel with a Wise Guy t-shirt. We have Death Go Round t-shirts. We have some coffee mugs, different things that are a lot of fun, and people seem to have enjoyed. Good quality there. Also on the website, you can do things like check out the Google map. I have a pin dropped in every place I've done videos about, then a link to the video so you can look at the map, and maybe there's somewhere where you live or somewhere you want to go. You can check out that map, and it seemed to be a very popular thing. You can sign up for my newsletter. I do that about every 3 weeks. It's totally free. And there's also all kinds of other links and tidbits in there, old videos, podcasts, just everything I could think of I throw on the website. So make sure you check out travelwithawiseguy.com. Thank you for everyone who has been supportive of this channel, and thank you so much for making it to the end of this video. And now for the reason you're probably here, the outtakes.
Wow, look at that one. Mindenmines, Missouri. That is authentic as it gets. Still spins really good. Wow, I love it. I'm gonna give that a 9. Hey guys, how are y'all? How's Waco? Say nice words instead of mean ones. Kid City, what a great place for a death go round. Oh wow, this has got to be the oldest thing on the playground. Sounds like a roller coaster, the old wooden roller coaster. That thing's still spinning though. Okay, calm down. I like it a lot. 9.5. Obviously, we don't get much traffic here in Opolis. Excuse me. Can I go by?